Welcome, fellow coders, to the first of 12 training classes on the Dart programming language. This class will completely prepare us to learn Flutter for mobile development so that we may develop both for iOS and Android mobile apps. The topics we will cover in this class are as follows. We'll learn what Dart is, how to use it, how to install it, what the SDK is, how to tell if we have Dart installed and what version, using Dart Pad, using Dart with VS Code, creating a Dart project using VS Code, learning about the Dart main function, and then we'll create our first Dart program. This class is so jam-packed, I don't want to waste another second. Let's go. What is Dart? Dart is a client-optimized language for fast apps on any platform. It's made by Google. It specializes in user interface creation, both mobile and the web. Our focus will be mobile in this series. It uses a hot reload feature to see changes to your code instantly while you're running your application. It's a very handy feature. It's a class-based language like many are. This is a style of object-oriented, or known as OOP, programming language, in which objects are entities that combine state, which is data, behavior, which are methods, which is another word for a function that happens to live in a class, and identity, which is unique existence. It can be used to write both scripts and full-featured applications. It is the underpinning program language for the Flutter platform. That's where we're headed after these 12 modules, which we will be using to build mobile applications eventually. That's one code base for both Android and iOS mobile development. That's the kicker here. In terms of using Dart, we have a few options depending upon what our development goals are. We can use the SDK. The SDK has libraries and command line tools needed to develop in Dart. If we're only developing mobile apps and not using Dart for command line applications or server applications, we could forego SDK and install Flutter instead. I'm going to go through stuff that touches upon the SDK, so we will use it here. You can use Dart Pad. What's Dart Pad? This is a tool that you can use to learn the Dart language that's web browser based and involves no downloading of any bits. It supports Dart's core libraries except for the VM libraries such as the Dart IO. To access DartPad, you'd go to dartpad.dev, and I have a little snapshot of it right here. So you can put your code on the left-hand side and run it, and it will print out the output on the right-hand side. It's fairly handy to get up and going. All right, and I developed this little cheat sheet to help you out depending upon what your needs are. You might only want to learn Dart. This is the right course for you. There are 12 sections that are jam-packed of everything you need to know. So if you want to learn mobile, you can install Flutter. If you, on the other hand, have a desire to move on to web development or server or command line applications, you want to install the SDK. Again, I'll be using both in this class. To install the Dart SDK on Windows, you can use an application called Chocolate, and you have to install that first, and you can install it right here. So once you have Chocolate installed, then you can install from the command line Choco install Dart-SDK. I also give you the syntax here to upgrade. And if you're a Mac user like me, you can use Homebrew. You'll have to have Homebrew installed. And you see the important note here, make sure Homebrew bin directory is in your path. So we have to make sure we set that up correctly. If you have any trouble, look at the Homebrew facts. Once that's installed, you can simply do brew tap dart-lang/Dart and then brew install Dart. It's very easy on Mac. I had no trouble at all. There's also syntax here to upgrade, to switch between Dart versions or releases, and also to see which Dart version you have installed. And if you are using the Linux OS, please go up to dart.dev/get-dart for some lengthy directions on how to get this installed on Linux. All right, so how do I tell if I have the Dart SDK installed? Sounds like a simple question, but this can save you oodles of time in your process here. So on Mac, you'd execute a brew space list. And in so doing, from the command line, obviously, from the terminal, you will see what all you have installed through brew. And you'll see right here in the blue highlight, I have Dart installed. From Windows, you can do the choco space list space dash dash local only. This will also give you the version. Now, what about if I want to determine what version of Dart I have installed on my system? On Mac, from the command line, Dart space dash dash version. And for Windows, you simply use the same command that we just covered on the previous slide, choco space list space dash dash local only. So what is the Dart SDK and what's in it? SDK stands for Software Development Kit. This is software that comes packaged that you'd be able to use for development purposes. So the command line tools, and this is a partial listing only, that come with the SDK is the Dart Analyzer. This analyzes code and reports on any errors, and you can determine what version of the analyzer you have if you wanted to by doing Dart Analyzer space dash dash version. Then we have the Dart Doc, which is the documentation generator. This creates API reference documentation from Dart source code. Then we have the Dart format, or Dart FMT. This is a Dart code formatter that allows the recommendations of the Dart style guide. There's a Dart style guide that I advise that you read. IDEs like VS Code will allow you to format code from within the IDE itself, and we're going to see that throughout the whole of this series. Then it has the pub, or package manager, that makes it easy for you to install, use, and share Dart external libraries. When using Flutter, we will be using the Flutter pub command instead of pub. Packages are published on the URL pub.dev. We have some more about what's in the SDK. In terms of web application tools, we have the Dart 2JS, the original Dart to JavaScript compiler. We have the Dart Dev-C, the Dart Dev compiler, a modular Dart to JavaScript compiler. IDEs and the Web Dev CLI use Dart Dev when running a development server. We have Web Dev, a command line interface, a CLI for Dart web app development. Then we have other command line and server tools. We have the Dart VM. We've spoken of that before. The standalone Dart VM used to execute Dart code, as I'm showing you here. When I do a Dart name of the file .dart from the command line, I'm using the Dart VM. A Dart to native. So this is a ahead of time compiler that compiles Dart code to native x64 machine code. And a Dart AOT runtime. That's a Dart runtime that you can use to run AOT snapshots. Okay, so let's examine DartPad just a little bit more. This is DartPad. This is an example of Flutter code, but on the right-hand side, you can also select code. It's a good way to get familiar with the code as well. So on the left-hand side here, we have the code that we're executing. And once you get more familiar with Dart, these parts of the code will make sense. You'll understand a class from an import statement, from a variable, from a for loop, etc. And on the right-hand side, we have the output that gets executed once you press this run button. And again, it's a great way to get introduced to Dart. I highly advise you go to dartpad.dev and just play around with it as we go through these various different training courses. So every coder that's coding in today's land using any kind of an object-oriented program, which is what Dart is going to use an IDE, which stands for Integrated Development Environment. The IDE I choose to use for coding in Dart is VS Code. I also use it for Python. I use it for other things. I've used it for JavaScript. But for Dart, I also use it here. So we're going to go through a few pages of setting up and using VS Code with Dart. There are a lot of advantages to it. It's a free tool. The first thing we do on this page is we want to go to code.visualstudio.com and install it. Okay, having installed VS Code on your platform of choice, the second thing we want to do is go to VS Code, open it up, and install what's known as the Dart code extension. And I show you a picture here below. VS Code is chock full of these libraries. And what this one does, there's one for so many of the famous programming languages. This one's for Dart. And this helps with things like debugging or editing the code, or even to be able to understand how a function has been constructed. You can right click on an object and you would be able to see exactly what went into making that section of code. It's extremely handy. So you go to the extensions page, and that's reflected right here by this puzzle piece looking thing, right? Like 4 squares with one off to the side. Then you'll search for Dart. Then you'll select install. Note, mine says uninstall because it's already installed. So my only option would be to disable or uninstall. All right, now here we're going to set up a project for our Dart code. I like to do this on Mac from the command line. It just is the easiest for me. There's many ways to do this. I'm going to show you this way. Feel free to explore and find other ways that are more to your liking. We'll open up a command window or a terminal. We will create a project called Dart app. So right here from the command line, I will issue the following code. Make dir, MKDIR, space Dart app, the name of the app. And again, this is for Mac, and this will work on Linux as well. Slightly different syntax on Windows. We will create a folder called lib. So to get in there, I have to do what's called a change directory. So cd space Dart app. And if you wanted to confirm that you're indeed at that level, you can do what's known as a PWD, a present working directory. So from inside of there, once having confirmed that I am indeed within the Dart app directory, I will do another make dir, mkdir space lib. I can cd into lib, I can do a pwd, and it shows me that I'm indeed at the lib location. So step 2 is we're going to now open this directory inside of VS Code. And VS Code has a wonderful way to do this, so easy. All you do is go to the Dart app folder and you drag it and drop it on top of your VS Code icon. So this is going to launch VS Code at the root of your Dart project. And once you do that, here's what it's going to look like. And by the way, I have some wonderful training on how to use VS Code, some tips and tricks on the Yogi Coder site. So you should check that out as well if you decide to use VS Code like I do. So step 3, we're going to right click on the lib directory and create a file called main.dart. So just right click, create a file, main.dart. If this is your first programming language, welcome. I don't want you to become nervous about what I will expose you to now. Just follow along. We are going to dive deep into all major parts and pieces of the Dart programming language. Dart has a requirement. Every Dart program must have what is known as a main function. This serves as the entry point to your application. It returns void or nothing and has an optional list string parameter for arguments. The main function gets executed before any other code of our application. We are going to get much deeper into what a function is, what lists are, what parameters and arguments are, everything having to do with this. Right now, the main takeaway is you need to construct a main function. The word void, which is about what it returns, and in this case it returns nothing. So that's why we use void as opposed to another type. And again, we'll get into types and everything. I promise you, you will walk away having a very strong understanding. Then we have the name main for our function, followed by an open and closing a parenthesis. Then we have curly brackets, and inside the curly brackets, we have the word print, an open bracket. Put whatever you want in there, whatever floats your boat. I put yo Dart exclamation in quotes, could be single quotes, could be double quotes. I close my paren and then semicolon. That's all I want you to do right now. All right, let's run this bad boy. So on the screen, we have our main.dart file with our one function, our required function called main. Inside of there, we're simply printing to the console a string. In my case, yo Dart. The print function is a built-in function. So let's notice a few things before we run this, and there are several ways to run it. We're just going to use the play button or the run button. All Dart statements end with a semicolon. It's not true of Python, but it's true of Dart. It's true of JavaScript. So you have a semicolon at the end of your statement. Our output will be spit out on the bottom once we press the run button. So the run button's used to run your code. You can also run the file from the command line, as we've previously seen that, and we're going to get into that much more in later modules as well. There's good reasons for that sometimes. So once, if everything's set up correctly, and I'm sure it is, once you press that play button, your Dart will print out or whatever string you decided to put in. And congratulate yourself. You have now created and executed your first computer program using the Dart language. So listen, thank you for hanging in. This is the last slide of this series. We have 11 more wonderful series to go. We're taking it from the very simple to much more advanced topics. And we are going to ready ourselves to dive into Flutter. If this has helped you, subscribe to the page, the Yogi Coder page. Give us a like. Write any comments that you can. I'll try to get back to you in short order if you've had any trouble at all. If not, let's stay tuned on this series and let's learn Dart together. Let's make a commitment and let's get through this. It'll be very rewarding in the end.